Welcome back to Teamsters Talk podcast, episode 6. Does UPS want a strike? That's the question on our minds today. I'm TC, one of your co-hosts, and I'm here with Adam Ochoa, my brother and fellow Teamster, and also co-host of this show, co-creator. Adam, tell us what's on your mind at the moment today.
Thank you, Tom. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Negotiations are ongoing, and we're getting some updates. The non-economics have finished. There has been some things in that, and some of them are positive. Some of them sort of neutral on, air conditioning. We'll talk about that later. Has been one of them, and that's a positive. But I think we always also need to look at something that there's something going on, at least here in NorCal, that basically will undermine anything that we get in this contract. And that is the push by the company, and in some cases, certain people in our union, for a sitting arbitrator. Now, take a step back and we'll kind of explain what that means. Under the current system, especially here in NorCal, I think for a lot of the country too, the standard system is you have a local review at the building. Then if you can't resolve it there, you move it to your local area panel. In this case, it would be our NorCal panel. And then it goes to the West, which is a second level panel. And then if it doesn't settle there, it goes to the national. The sitting arbitrator, especially in terminations, would rule in this case at the second level or the first level, which is for us, it would be our NorCal panel. NorCal as a committee has adamantly been against a sitting arbitrator. And let me explain to you why. So if you're fired, or in NorCal, there's only 3 cardinal sins, and it's theft, gross insubordination, and intoxication / fighting. Everything else, every other termination you could get is a working termination. So you continue to work until your case is heard. And it might deadlock through all the panels that I previously stated. In the meantime, you're working. With a sitting arbitrator, you would go to that NorCal panel, presumably as soon as a week to 2 weeks, usually 2 weeks to a month from your local review, and he would rule whether you're just fired or not. So unless you're off for a cardinal sin, all you're doing is getting fired quicker or potentially getting fired quicker. The delay of a termination only benefits the member, and I'll tell you why. And I know some people are going to have a difference of opinion, but let me explain what I think most people don't understand. If I'm fired tomorrow for a non-cardinal sin, and so I'm still working, I know there is a potential discharge waiting for me. I'm going to start doing what I would do anyways, right? Which is looking for other ways to make a living, right? I'm going to start looking for that second job, looking at what I'll be able to collect with unemployment, whatever my means are going to be. If I get fired in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to do that anyways. I only got 2 weeks to do it. So under the current system, yes, there's a delay, but I'm preparing for what might happen. Advancing that doesn't help at all. And secondly, extending that while I'm still working is beneficial to what we've talked about previously, which is most of us that have been at UPS for any extended period of time realize that a lot of the discipline that is taken is subjective to emotion and how a supervisor feels, whether he or she likes you, whether you burn up your route or you jump through hoops for them. More times than not, if you're that person that stands up for yourself and doesn't take the abuse that UPS dishes out, they want to target you. And frivolous discipline comes, to you up and including, a discharge for things. So there just generally is no advantage to a sitting arbitrator. Now, in other areas of the country that might have more cardinal sins, in other words, they could be off roll for more things than just the 3 things I talked about. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe their union representation isn't pushing the issue forward. And to be honest, that's probably the issue we probably have here in NorCal at times, right? The contract has very specific timelines on when things are supposed to be done. And if you look at a better way to fix that is to put penalties to the company for not following those timelines. Let me give you an example. The company is required by contract to meet with your local union representatives every month, at least once, if not more, but at least once, to hear all the pending cases. UPS purposely delays that, makes themselves unavailable, understaffs their labor managers. The labor managers have these huge territories that they, in a lot of situations, can't possibly cover. It's all designed to create a delay in their benefit. If you take our current system with its timelines and you apply penalties to them not meeting those timelines, that is going to greatly increase, if not eliminate, all the delay. The grievance procedure provides both parties, both the company and the union, the ability of one postponement. So let's just say, for instance, Tom has a grievance. Let's just get any grievance for that matter. And business agent gets it on by the 15th of the month, makes the agenda for the following month. He says, hey, I'm calling the case on for panel. And the company says, okay, well, we're not ready. We postpone. So, okay, so be it. They have that right. 4 weeks later to the next panel. Now you're 6 weeks out. The union has the right to postpone, but they've had 6 weeks to prepare, right? So more than likely, if the union's done its job, hey, that case is on. Worst case scenario, because the union still needs time, maybe they use their one postponement. Goes to the next month. Now you're about 2.5 months out, and a very worst case scenario for settling anything. If you add penalties to them extending, because they routinely will say, well, we're still not ready. Or the union has asked for information regarding your case and they still haven't provided it. And the only thing that happens to them is they go to panel and the panel tells them, slap on the wrist. Hey, you need to meet with the union. And then there's the next delay and the next delay. Sometimes your local union postpones for whatever reason. Penalties built into that for the company. Those penalties, by the way, should be paid to the member. So if the company has used its postponement and still isn't prepared, and I'll give you an example here in a minute. When I gave my proposals to our local union, and I've seen this from other areas of the country too. Hey, company's not ready to put on that case. Guess what? You start paying that member a weekly penalty. Things like, 8 hours pay if you're full-time, 4 hours if you're part-time. You can even give it a set amount, right? $100 a week until you hear my case. But the penalties need to be substantial. And if UPS is paying penalties for every week or every day that they've extended past what the contract gives them, that's going to incentivize them to do it. And if they still don't want to do it, then they're going to be paying you good money every week until your case is heard, which, minimizes some of the delay and the waiting around that you have. We have good language. It just needs penalties to make it happen. I'll bring up the proposal that I gave our local union, and we'll bring it to the screen right now.
Just so those listening knows, a standing arbitrator and a sitting arbitrator are two terms for the same person.
That's correct, Tom. Thank you for clarifying that. So here is the proposals that I gave to our local union back in October of last year when we had our proposal meetings. And as you can see, you have the ability to do something like this. They gave out these forms, and this is the full-time form, but the grievance procedure is the same in both our NorCal supplement and our sort writer for part-timers. So I'll just use this, but they gave us these forms like this, and I went ahead and typed mine in just because my handwriting is terrible. And it says here, and you see initial handling and time limitations. And I added in here in the red that they will meet no less than one time per month. Why? Because UPS is notorious for canceling local reviews. And if you don't hear the case locally and you take it to panel, they're going to say, well, this case hasn't been properly reviewed. Therefore, they get another month. So no less than one time per month. And then I put, if the employer fails to meet and review the case brought to their attention since the previous month's meeting, the pending grievance for that time period shall result in a default decision against the employer. So if they refuse to meet on a monthly basis, all the grievances that the local was bringing to that month's meeting, the union wins. Whether it's a discharge, it gets eliminated, a suspension that gets thrown out, supervisor working grievance, they got to pay it, but you win. Just that language alone is going to get them at least to start reviewing cases and stop delaying and coming up with excuses why they can't meet with your business agent. Then it's up to the business agent to make sure that, they're available every month too. Set a meeting and make it happen, right? But assuming that happens, they're going to start showing up to these meetings and stop pushing them off. Moving down through the proposal, right now the contract very clearly says that when the union requests information regarding your case, whether it's payroll information or attendance information, they've got 5 days to provide that information. They routinely don't provide it, or they're busy, they're trying to get it. I currently have a case right now where they didn't call me to work, and they claim they think there's some decision that says that I'm wrong. Well, the union has requested that information, and we're 6 months out and they still haven't provided that information. So right here, I've put that a penalty of $100 will be paid to the affected employee and to the union for every day that the requested information is not provided. Why? Because the company is using our most precious resource, which is time, and just treating it like it's nothing. So your business agent is requesting the information, they're ignoring it. The member is waiting to have their case heard, but can't because the union doesn't have the information they need. Okay, so be it. Take as long as you want. You're paying me $100 a week until you get it. It may not be legal for the company to pay the union a penalty, but I put that in there just for argument's sake, so that if it got to the bargaining table and if it is a possibility, because I don't want my business agent spending his time asking UPS 100 times for information they should have given when it was provided the first time, right? Their time is our money, and I want our BAs handling issues, not asking for the same thing over and over and over. So, but for argument's sake, I put that in there too. But hey, you want to delay my union and their ability to get the information to adjudicate my case? Hey, you're going to pay me $100 a week until you do it. Moving down, handling of discharges and suspensions. I've never liked the fact that theft of time is a cardinal sin, and let me tell you why. In its nature, people think of, those of us who are talking honestly, theft of time is some egregious, you're sleeping for an hour on the job, right? And they've proven it, by the way, or something like that. But it's too subjective to what they determine to be theft, right? What if you stop on your way to your package car or on your way to your work area and you talk to a coworker for a couple minutes and they see you? Are they going to say, oh, you were stealing time? Let's be real. It's not theft of time. Maybe you need to tell them, hey, let's go get to work. So be it. But that just opens up a total door to what they think theft of time is. Let the system decide whether it's theft of time, right? It would be a working discharge, not an off-roll discharge, just like everything else, until the case is adjudicated. And then if it's found through the facts that, yes, it was theft, then just like anything else, that is what it is. Secondly, and moving on, all discharges and suspensions shall be considered automatically protested. The union protests all your discharges and suspensions anyways. Why should they have to give written notification that they're protesting it? They do it anyways. All it is a loophole for a clerical error or something to happen where a letter doesn't go through or something where it's not protested, and then you're fired or suspended automatically. So let's just get rid of that, make them already, automatically protested as they already are. And that's really something like that is what I think that we need, is just penalties in the current grievance system that incentivize and, in essence, penalize the company for not meeting the timelines. You don't need a sitting arbitrator at the next panel to rule on your case. Remember, these sitting arbitrators weren't at the bargaining table. They look at the language as, well, that's what I think it means. The parties who bargained that are already at the panel, the company and the union. If the company can't be honest about what they know they bargained for, then no, we're not going to fast track that so that you can get what you want. Next, and this may be even worse, a sitting arbitrator ruling on contract language basically gives the company a fast track to get what they couldn't get in negotiations. They'll agree to something in negotiations. Yeah, we agree to that, right? They sign the contract. We all move down the road. Then they will violate that language. And you know UPS, because this is what they do anyways. They'll violate that language in 100 different directions, right? They'll change a little nuance every time they violate it. And say, oh, no, that's not what we agreed to. This is something different. When the union knows, and we know as members, no, that's what it means. Stop playing games. But they're going to find new ways to violate that because they have a sitting arbitrator over here who they can get a case to rapid fire. And eventually they're hoping that he will see some angle to that and say, oh, you know what? They do have the right to do that. And in essence, what they couldn't get in negotiations, they just got a third party who wasn't at the bargaining table to give it to them. And a sitting arbitrator is of no additional cost to the company because that person is sitting there being paid every month to hear 0 cases or 100 cases. He wouldn't be able to hear 100, but theoretically, under the current system, arbitration takes a long time and it's extremely expensive. And that is a deterrent to the company thinking about whether or not they truly want to arbitrate a case, right? The time spent, the money spent. It should be hard to fire somebody. When you're going to take somebody's livelihood, you should have to do all the possible work that you need to do. You should have to take a step back and truly think whether or not this person has done something so egregious that you're going to take their livelihood. I don't want, and I don't think our members want somebody sitting there. It sounds great on the outside, right? And even people in our own organization are bragging about that this sitting arbitrator has already been agreed to in other supplements. That it's going to fast track grievances. They're going to get heard more quicker. What it's going to do is give the company a mechanism to challenge the contract rapid fire every way they can, and in essence change that. And it's also going to be a fast track to people getting fired. I can't emphasize enough to our members in NorCal, because what has sort of come to light is, as NorCal now is the only supplement still not settled, this is the reason why.
Has 89 settled?
So I heard yesterday that there is a rumor that 89 has settled. Don't know that to be fact, but potentially they've settled. And if they haven't, I'm not sure what the issues are that are holding up 89. Brothers and sisters, if you haven't settled yet, we're still with you. We should be with you. I know those of us who believe in the system, we're with you. And I'm assuming that you're with us if we're the only two out. But
well, and you know who else should be with both the local 89 and the 89 and NorCal, and that's the National Master Negotiations, because we were we were told going into this year of negotiations, National Master Negotiations will not proceed without all supplementals finalized.
Yep.
And we have 2 that have been sitting for over a month now, and still nothing. No help from National Master Negotiations whatsoever to walk away from the table and force their hand. So what are they forcing down our throats here in NorCal? What's being agreed upon? Why are they not coming to our aid? It makes me wonder, Adam, and it makes me aggravated, because why the sudden change of pace? Why the sudden change of heart when he was so adamant about how it was going to be done beforehand? What are they trying to accomplish here in our NorCal negotiations that are so important? It's got to be the sitting arbitrator. It's got to be. They're trying to force us, and we know that we've got a great contract or a great supplemental, excuse me. And it's because we can enforce our language. We can use strategies, right, on management, like taking up their time when they should be in the facilities running operations. Rather, they have to be sitting in panel after panel or review after review, taking up their time over these stupid things that they did in anger when they should know better. Penalties, like you said, are one way to, if we could add penalties into that contract, into that supplemental, that is a deterrent. But one deterrent we have in place is taking up their time. They have to be there in person for all these reviews. They don't want to do that. They have an operation to run. So we can pile it on them the more they pile it on us. You put a sitting arbitrator out there just deciding, boom, boom, boom. Guess what? It's no sweat off their back because they don't have to be there for review after review. And that's a problem for us. And I'm going to say it again, National Master, walk away from the table and come to our aid.
Hey, I totally agree, Tom. And we talked about this when the stance was taken that negotiating the supplements first. And that's unconventional. But at the same time, we mentioned, hey, it's a leverage point, right? And as it proceeded, it looked like it was working, right? The supplements were settling across the country with what the officials thought was good for their members. And I applaud them for that. And maybe the sitting arbitrator works for them because their current grievance procedure has issues that they think that works. But I know most of the people on that NorCal committee. I sat on that committee for 9 years. I've been on the last 2 negotiations. And with the exception of a few new faces there, they have adamantly been against a sitting arbitrator. This isn't the first attempt at this. And yes, our national committee seems to be on board with, they think it's a good idea. And maybe it is for certain parts of the country. But the reason NorCal has had such a great contract is because we've always been willing to fight for better and not be afraid to be the last one out and not be afraid to stand up for something we believe in, yet not forcing our opinions on our other brothers and sisters who might have different needs. But our national committee needs to walk away from the table and fulfill the promise that they would not keep negotiating until the supplements were done. I know our committee has went on the record, or at least in their release, saying they support the national master moving forward. I don't buy that. I think that is political support at some level. I think that if you asked the NorCal committee individually, openly, and they could speak without fear of retaliation, they would, very, very large number would say, hey, stop those negotiations till UPS does this. And now UPS is playing this game of, giving proposals in a bundle, right? Well, we'll give you what you want in this group of proposals if you give us everything that we want in this group. Well, of course, that group of proposals includes the sitting arbitrator. And our NorCal committee has said, no, we're going to deal with each proposal on both sides individually. You're not going to force us to take a package deal. And to get things that we want as a package, you have to get a package. No, we'll take each issue from both sides, right? What the company wants, what we want, and we'll deal with them individually. And UPS has just said, no, we're not going to talk about it unless you accept it as a package. So our NorCal committee has been summoned back to DC, and they're going to do what was traditionally done, which is sort of negotiate the two at the same time. If that's being done to get our supplement done, I applaud the move. If it's being done to pressure NorCal and to just, come on, just agree to this, and everybody else has, well, good for everybody else. But it doesn't work for us. And members of NorCal, not just 948, all the other locals in Northern California, call your rep, ask them where they stand on this. They almost every one of them who I know personally has adamantly been against this in every way. So if they've changed their mind now, and not just a little bit too, because I've heard some rumblings out there about, well, maybe a sitting arbitrator at some level is okay. We're letting the devil in the door, and it'll never go away once you get it. And everything that we're going to get in this contract, and I've seen some positives coming through the non-economics and things that I do believe are positive. They'll mean nothing because UPS will use that sitting arbitrator to undo those things by challenging them in a million different ways and getting them in essence, oh, well, that's not actually what they meant. What they meant was this. And yes, I agree with them. Do not let a third party start dictating to us. It's already tough enough dealing with UPS, right? And their constant, backstepping on what they agreed to. Let's not let a third party come in who wasn't even at the negotiating table start dictating to our members and our officials what our contract means. And if we come to a ratification meeting here in the next few months and that's on the table, I would urge everyone to vote it down. It does not mean that you're necessarily going to go on strike. What you do is you tell your representatives, hey, we're voting this down. Go back to the table and get rid of that arbitrator, and we're good with everything else. And that may be the case. Don't be afraid to tell them that. If it's portrayed to you that take it or leave it, and if you vote no, it's a strike, say no, I want you to go back to the table and get rid of that part, and we're good. Or get rid of 3 things and we're good, or change whatever. But you should not be pressured by your union to agree to something you don't like. And trust me, that sitting arbitrator will eventually has the potential to potentially undo any good thing you get in this contract. It just is what it is. So,
Adam, we've said it a bunch of times, and I know that it's the general consensus that that NorCal has one of the best, if not the best, supplemental in the nation as far as UPS goes. That being said, we've also talked about the dream circumstances going into these negotiations. You got, you got inflation at all-time highs, and you're talking about a company who's making all-time highs.
Yeah,
that equates to making more, getting more out of the company. And I don't understand, and maybe that's because I haven't been at the level that you have, but I don't understand why going into this negotiation, instead of trying to, I don't understand why the national wouldn't look at the NorCal agreement supplemental and go, hey, there's our template for the rest of the nation. Why don't we get what they've got for everyone else? I don't understand that.
if you
get halfway there, you've gotten so much farther than you ever have before for everyone.
If you look at several forums online, and there's a bunch, I won't name one specifically, but if you look at them, that is something that our brothers and sisters in the Central and the East have talked about. Look at the discrepancy, I should say, in pension rates, right? There's a huge difference in pension. Us on the West Coast, we have a great pension. The solvency's there. The monthly amount on average is higher. Everything about bringing the rest of the country up to the NorCal level benefits them greatly and secures what we already have in NorCal. We can't be short-sighted and think that we can allow UPS to continue to pay our brothers and sisters less pension, have less rights, and we'll just be happy you have a job, right? No. And I do see, I want to reiterate, I do see several positives that they've already agreed to. The air conditioning is a good thing. Yes, it doesn't start till next year and it's on new vehicles, but UPS buys a lot of vehicles over time, and that eventually, now we know down the road it's going to happen. Fixing, the pension disparities between the different pensions, fixing the work rules. There's just no reason why NorCal being for the most part, the better contract should ever take a step back. And I'm telling you, I can sort of see the writing on the wall that if it gets forced to us in a ratification meeting, it's going to be portrayed even by our own officials as something good. And they have been adamant, and they are on the record at this point, right, of saying no to it. And I commend them for that. But they need to stand strong and tell the master and tell the national committee that, hey, it is what it is, right? That's a strike issue for us, and we need your support. We cannot have our own organization pressuring us to accept something because that'll get the deal done for them. They need to support us first so that our committee can shut that down, be done with it, and join their place on the national committee. And now we all move forward as one on the national, right? Right now, NorCal's trying to negotiate NorCal, and they're trying to negotiate the master, yet we're theoretically holding up the supplemental negotiations. We need our national committee to shut those national negotiations down, force UPS to settle with NorCal, and we all go back to the national table as one group, as one union, and get what we need to get. Secondly, call it a leak, right? I believe it came on Twitter, and I'm sure it's on several other formats now, of the opening proposal by UPS on the economics this week. Yes, this is a first proposal, right? First proposals are never great. But even the worst first proposals usually, or at least some level, have some credibility. They're not even remotely in the ballpark. And you can get those online, and maybe we'll provide a link to them later. But, 50 and 60 cent raises for part-timers. A new starting rate for part-timers of $17, which is pennies above what they're already getting as a starting rate. They want to reduce the top pay of drivers down to like $36 from the current $42. Might be a little less. It's 30 something. I would say 32, 34. So what we're trying to get rid of in a two-tier, that just reinvented a new two-tier, right? That any new drivers coming up are going to have a lower rate. Granted, like I said, this is a first proposal, but generally first proposals don't include going backwards from the beginning, right? Even in the 224 scenario, at least people that had what they had kept it. This is just another way for them to do what they've always done. And to the national committee and our general president, to their credit, they walked away from the table. And they told UPS, come back when you have something real to talk about. So I commend them for that. I do. Thank you. That's on behalf of me and Tom here and all the members. I commend you for doing that. That's exactly what we need to see there. And it's exactly what we need to see from our national committee when it comes. Not only are we not coming back till you have a legitimate economic proposal, we're not coming back till you settle the NorCal supplement. Use that same leverage and that same strength you've shown for the national negotiations. Use that to support NorCal and local and the local 89 supplement if it's not settled, by the way. We have never been in a better position as a union to negotiate a good deal. Everything is in our favor, right? We just did a strike authorization. 97% of our members voted to authorize a strike. That is a huge hammer for our negotiators to go to the table and say, hey, get serious. Because if you don't get serious, our members have authorized us to take you out. And I know that sounds harsh and it sounds, to some people, militant, but it is what it is, right? This is a fight. It's not a holding hands type of deal. This is a fight for our livelihood. And sometimes you got to have strong words if you want strong action. And our committee said from the beginning, we were going to get the best contract ever, and not by a little bit. I'll reiterate. Part-timers should get $20 an hour. Long-term part-timers who are already above that should be getting a raise reflective of their seniority. Drivers should be getting a $2 to $3 an hour raise. And this is in the first year, by the way. I'm not talking about $20 an hour for part-timers by the end of the contract. They need that raise now. Drivers need that $2 to $3 an hour bump first year and $1 plus going forward. Inflation, Everything, the cost of living. UPS's profits are unheard of in the last 2 years. And when we went to the bargaining table during COVID and said, hey, they're doing this essential work, which I hate that word. I mean, it almost makes it, we're always essential. But to that point, we did all this. We went to the company, said, hey, you need to give our brothers and sisters a bump for, basically carrying the economy. And they gave the lawyer response was, hey, we got a contract. So it is what it is. And yes, they're correct in that, but there are other union represented employers that even though they didn't have to give something, they gave something because they realized the sacrifice that their members or that their employees were making during that time to keep this country running. UPS could care less, right? They leaned on, well, we have a contract. Well, that's funny because they give market rate adjustments in places where they can't hire people because they don't pay them enough. So when they want to do it or when it benefits them, they do it. But when it doesn't benefit them and their stockholders, they have a contract. So to that point, do not buy into the fact that, and I still believe that when you get to a proposal or a ratification meeting here in the near future, you're going to see the best raises ever. Not because anything special happened, but because UPS has to do that just to survive. The turnover in their part-time ranks is astronomical. Even in their full-time ranks, they're having issues retaining people. They're going to give up those raises just to survive, and they have the leverage is not on their side. But do not think you have to give up something like the strength of your grievance procedure and giving into a sitting arbitrator because it will undermine everything for the rest of your career. And getting rid of that once they have it, that is a dream scenario for UPS to have a bunch of sitting arbitrators fast tracking the grievance system. What we need is penalties in the grievance system for the delays that they cause. And if they want to delay your grievance for whatever excuse they have, you're being paid on a weekly, maybe even a daily basis until they get off the butt and settle your grievance. So just let's not forget, we do not want, nor do we need a sitting arbitrator for anything. They can afford to give good raises. They can afford to fix the issues they've caused, and they do not need that sitting arbitrator.
Agreed. Things have gotten crazy across the nation. We're hearing multiple reports here locally. The company is I don't even know how to put it, Adam. They're kind of losing their minds, if you ask me. There's been some firings at our local building, and one in particular. I care about all those guys, but there's one in particular that is kind of outrageous because of the nature of the position of the man who was fired. He was actually fired. He was walked off the property, and it's a good friend of ours, or we know him and have been side by side with him on several efforts to educate our members. And he is a shop steward for the local union. And to boot, he was performing his shop steward duties when he was fired and walked off the property. Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there laws in place that protect a shop steward performing his duties?
So the National Labor Relations Act protects him. And basically what it says is when he's acting in the capacity of a steward, he is on equal with whatever management person he is dealing with. And that could be, what's her name? Carol Tomey, for that matter. It could be a district manager, right? And we're talking about our brother, Luis Rivera. He was defending a member. Supervisor raised her voice at him. He matched that voice. She stood up. He stood up. He did nothing inappropriate. He did exactly what he's allowed to do by law, which is be her equal and respond to her in the nature she was responding to him. And then they turned around the next day and said he was, workplace violence and all this other, and walked him off the property. Number one, if it hasn't already been done, the local union needs to be filing an unfair labor practice. That's just, it's BS. And that is a statement by management that if you stand up for yourselves, we can even take your shop stewards out. And what Brother Rivera did was completely protected by law. We cannot, as just, and this, I'm just speaking for Local 948 right now, but it applies to anywhere. We can't have our representatives be made an example out of, or any member for that matter. But this is a shot across the bow by the management team in our building to shut him up, to show members that if you're going to stand up for yourself, this will happen to you. And I hope that our local representatives are planning something now. I mean, that we stand in support of our brother and anybody else who's unjustly removed. But
Adam, what, you've been in office before. What would you do if this had been one of your shop stewards?
Well, it's been what, 3 weeks since he's been out? Something of that nature?
Yeah.
We would have already had a picket in front of the building. We would have invited other Teamster locals to come join us in that picket, right? You can use local media. Joint Council 7 has one of those great Teamster trucks that we could have pulled out in front of the building and staged an incident, right? Causing that public, attention to what's going on in the building. People don't realize what happens sometimes at a place of work. And we need to show our members that we got their back, right? And this would have been that. Hey, file an unfair labor practice. Make them answer to that. Anything and everything from state and federal laws to contract language, to everything. And that just has to be. This has never been a better chance for us to show that we're willing to support our brothers and sisters. And he's not the only one that's, had this type of, this has just sort of been the culmination of the environment that has been brewing in that building. And because he's not afraid to speak up for his brothers and sisters, for himself, for the contract, right? That's what he's doing. He's defending the contract, which defends our members. And Brother Rivera, we got your back. I'm hopeful that the local union has something planned, but just you're not alone, man. And I think that from those of us, that you work with. But this would be a contract proposal if I ever saw one, right? Which is additional protections above not just contract, but state and federal law that protects our shop stewards. Because in essence protects our members, right? A shop steward needs to know unequivocally that he does not have to be afraid to speak his mind. And I was a steward for 14 years. And I had some very animated discussions with managers over the years that were no different than what Brother Rivera did in that. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I took it even farther. Because I knew when I was defending my brother Tom or whoever, I had the right to speak as they spoke to me. And if they wanted to yell, I was going to yell. If they wanted to cuss, I had the right to cuss. And those have always been protected acts. We cannot allow UPS to send an intimidation through our membership that makes people afraid to speak up, right? We need to educate our members on their rights, and they need to not fear standing up for themselves. So I'll just leave it at that. Tom will kind of let you take it from there, but we've got to put an end to this type of act.
Adam, to your point on staging I like the idea of staging something public, kind of shaming the company for infringing someone's lawful rights. And I think it would, especially in the current state of, we're in the middle of negotiations. The spotlight is already on UPS and Teamsters nationally. In media, you're getting story after story on is UPS going to strike? Well, it's a hot topic right now. If we had a strike team, or not a strike team, excuse me, a picket team out there right now picketing them for treating one of our shop stewards like trash, that would be all the headline. I have a feeling that would be all over the state. maybe even get some national notoriety. I don't think they would want that kind of pressure on them. And maybe they would, start thinking about, well, maybe we messed up. And guess what, UPS, especially locally, you messed up. I don't agree with the decision, regardless of how you may have thought it went. You violated his rights as soon as you immediately fired him and walked him off the property. And that we can't stand for that. And something needs to be done. And Local 948, we back you up in however strong you are going to go. And we hope that you're going to the strongest defense of our brother as you can. We're right there with you, just like Adam said. So to that, thank you all for the support. Again, we're not official representation of the Local 948. We are members in good standing, and this is a public forum for a opinion-based discussion about being a Teamster and everything surrounding that. So thank you again for the support, everybody. Again, don't forget that we have the TeamstersTalk at gmail.com email. Please write to us. Tell us everything that's going on around your circumstances. We would love to hear it. We would love to share it if you would like us to. Any topic suggestions, anything like that. We thank you guys for being unified. We thank you for the support, and we support you, and we are unified for you as well.
Yeah, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. The support has been unbelievable. And I mean, not a day goes by that people aren't saying, hey, when's the next episode? What's going on? You're the reason why this show continues, because you continue to inspire us with your thirst for knowledge and your ask for us to do those type of things. So last but not least, this you should have received one of these in the mail saying what it is. It's a notice from our local union of the local Teamsters 948 officers election. And what that means is, every 3 years we elect our representatives for the local. That includes the staff that they hire, the business agents, the executive board, so that executive board and that principal officer hire your business agents and your staff. So it came like this. Look, came your mail. It was folded in half, and it a lot of times people think it's junk mail. So the 948 election is August 19th, and right here inside is the polling assignments, and it tells you if you're if you work in Modesto or Houston, which is up north, and this is your polling site. If you work in Oakdale, here's your polling site. And these polling sites, for the most part, are the same as they were historically, with one exception. The Visalia polling site has traditionally been one of the two hotels, either the Wyndham or the Best Western, right off of 198 and 99. And it was always put there because the large majority of the employers are in the industrial park in Visalia. Right down the road, right? People get off work on Saturday. It makes it more convenient. Because it's on 99 and 198, our brothers and sisters at Ruan and Tulare, people coming from, the other side of Visalia, they come right up 198 or 99. Boom, they got a quick polling site and they can go. It has been moved to the local union office or the union hall. So you're going to have to drive a little farther. It's not quite as convenient. But just be aware that it is at the Union Hall now. Here's the address. You can also look at this on our Instagram page. It's posted in a hard copy, so it's easier for you to blow it up. But, why that was moved there outside of it's just because it's free. But it is not as convenient or as readily available to our members as they get off work on Saturday or as they leave town for the weekend. You do have to, drive a little bit more and work your way through town to get to that hall. So make sure you realize that that has been changed and you know where to go. It is a walk-in election. And there is an absentee ballot procedure, but it's very strict because it's basically for an emergency. And the reason that is because years ago, Local 948 had a problem with ballot collecting. And people, when the ballots were mailed, people would buy them, collect them, and turn them in. And I don't think I have to explain what that means to folks. It's been a huge accusation in multiple elections, including presidential elections. So for the most part, you are going to need to go in person. The polls open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you've got 14 hours to do it. The 6 a.m. for the reason because a lot of people want to leave town on the weekend. And so, hey, you can be there right at 6. It takes just a couple minutes. You vote and you're off to your weekend, right? And usually that opening poll is one of the busiest times. So just make note of that. Oakdale is, still, right there in Oakdale, Atwater. Some of these locations are a little different, but they're in the same town they've always been in, or they're relevant because they're closest to the where the members work. So take a look at that. Some of them are the same, but you are assigned to these polling sites. You can go to the other polling sites, but they're going to have to verify your membership. They end up basically putting you on a paper ballot sometimes, and they count those later on that night instead of them doing it on the touchscreen and it be instant. So please look in your mail, look for this. It looks like this in your mailbox. It's folded in half. And so that's real important that you take a look at that, and you'll more to that to come in the future. But don't mistake it for junk mail and throw it away. It's not a credit card offer. It's not a newsletter. It's very vital to realizing that we do have an officers election this year. So with that, I just wanted to make sure that we shared that with everybody. And once again, Tom, thank you again. This show continues to grow, continues to just be more than I ever realized it was going to be. And that's because of you, the members, that you have continued to inspire us, give us ideas for things you'd like to see, ask for information. And that's just a great thing. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in.